Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Unique Perspective Show. On today's show, I am thrilled and honored to announce that I have Eli Beer on the show. Eli Beer grew up in Eretz Yisrael, but from a young age, he had trouble learning in yeshiva. So his father had a Sfarim store in Israel, so he learned a lot of the time by his father's store. At the age of 7, he heard about a terrible tragedy, and it stuck in his mind for many, many years. When he was 16 years old, as you will hear more about it in this week's episode, he decided to start his own Hatzalah organization, and it's called United Hatzalah. This week's episode is in memory of my dear friend Raphy Strauss, who was just niftar a week and a half ago. Raphael Yaakov Yisroel ben Ron, may his Neshama have an Aliyah. It is also being sponsored by Paraflight. You need to be transported from one hospital to the next. You need to be flown from one hospital to the next. Or you need an organ flown from one hospital to the next. Paraflight is there for you 24/7 for all your transport needs. To learn more about Paraflight and what they do exactly, please visit them at www.paraflight.aero. That is www.paraflight.aero. And shoot them an email at info@paraflight.aero. That is info@paraflight.aero. Welcome to the Unique Perspective Show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Baruch Hashem. How are you?
Baruch Hashem. First of all, long time in the making. I know it's been hectic on your end, on my end. But Baruch Hashem, we made it here.
Yes, we did. We did. It had a long journey to get here.
Yeah. So first of all, Eli, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Yerushalayim. I was born and raised there, and I was my whole life from there.
Wow. But your parents came from America, or they grew up also in Israel?
My parents came from USA. They were born in New York. My father was from the Lower East Side, and my mother was from a place called East New York.
Oh wow. So really, you're like American Israeli, or you're like full-fledged Israel?
Okay, so I'm a true Israeli American.
Okay. What yeshivas did you go to growing up in Eretz Yisrael?
I went to a lot of yeshivas.
Okay.
Because everyone wanted me.
Oh, really? Wow.
Or everyone didn't want me. Either one. I went to, I don't know, I would say one of the yeshivas I went to, which I enjoyed, was Torah Or. When I was, for a while, I came for a while, went there. I went to Base Yisroel for a while. I'm talking about yeshivas that Americans would know. I went to Keren B'Yavne for a while, short while. But most of my life, I learned on my own.
Oh, wow. Meaning at home or in yeshiva you learned at yourself?
Okay, so if you read my book, I'll send you a book of mine called 90 Seconds, which you get in every store.
Right.
And you'll see that I had a hard time when I grew up. I had a hard time in yeshiva. I didn't do well.
Okay.
ADD, HDAD, maybe a little dyslexia and different things that I had a hard time learning. And the traditional way of teaching wasn't the right way for me. And I found myself graduating school in the age of 12. and I ended up working for my father. He had a bookstore, a farm store in
Mm-hmm.
Beit Vagan in Yerushalayim.
Okay.
And I think I learned there more than I learned all the years in school.
Wow. So, wow, that's amazing. Um, okay, so after yeshiva or whatever you did, um, you you tried joining Hatzalah. You did join Hatzalah. What exactly happened?
So, well, when I was in yeshiva, as I say, I went to yeshiva. I used to go to yeshiva, for some sdorim, like I
Okay.
didn't go full time because I worked for my father in a young age in this farm store, and I learned a lot from my father.
Okay.
My father taught me a lot, and I read a lot of books growing up while I was in the farm store.
Right.
So
Okay.
and I learned business there, and I learned everything. But my passion was always wanted to save lives. That's all I wanted to do. I grew up as a kid in Yerushalayim. I saw a terrorist attack, a bus blow up. I was 6 years old when it happened. It was in Beit Vagan, and it was a terrible attack. 6 people were killed, murdered, and
Wow.
over 50 people hurt. And I remember people screaming for help, and I couldn't help them. So growing up, that trauma of remembering what I saw was chasing me, was hunting me all the time. And whenever I saw an ambulance in the street, I always said, I want to be in the ambulance helping people. I want to save people. So when I was 15 years old, I went to join an ambulance, and that's how it started. I was a very young volunteer. It was very, very young to join. And I graduated the course, and I became like a first responder. I learned how to save people's lives. And then I realized, being in the back of an ambulance, that you don't save lives so easily. It looks a
Okay.
lot easier when you study it, but when you actually get to this situation, you realize you don't save people. And after a year and a half in the back of an ambulance, I realized that the reason you don't save lives is not because there is no way of saving. There is, but we get there too late. When you get to an emergency too late, you can bring someone back to life.
Wow.
And it's happened over and over and over. We used to get to emergencies. Sometimes it took us 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get to someone who was not breathing. We couldn't save them. And that's the moment I realized, after 1.5 years or a year and a half
Hmm.
volunteering in an ambulance, that something needs to be changed. The way
Okay.
people get help is wrong, completely wrong.
Wow. First of all, how old were you back when that tragedy happened?
I was almost 6 years old.
Oh wow. Okay, so for about 10 years you had that back in the back of your mind, that tragedy.
Exactly. I was, you know, I was thinking about it all the time, about these 6 people who were killed, murdered. And I said, maybe one of them could have been saved if I knew what to do, if I was older. And I said, you know what? One day I will be saving people. I said, I want to save people. And I used to go all the time to visit Yad Vashem. You ever been to Yad Vashem?
I was there once.
And I used to see that the Nazis, they killed so many Jews, millions and millions of Jews, 6 million Jews.
Wow.
And I said, if they had one Jew saved, how many Jews lived after? One Jew saved from the war, from the Nazis, that Jew went and created a whole family and children and grandchildren, great grandchildren. I said, I want to save one Jew. That's what I want to do.
Wow.
And I went to volunteer in an ambulance, and I realized it's not so easy. And then we had an emergency call that changed my life.
Okay.
A 7-year-old boy who choked, and his mother
Wow.
called help. He choked from a hot dog, and we arrived to help this kid 21 minutes after the mother called. That's how long it took us to come with an ambulance.
Wow.
And when I arrived, I actually saw the kid on the floor, completely blue. We started CPR on him, and a doctor runs into the house. He saw us come with the ambulance. He heard the ambulance, so he came to help us. And he said he's an emergency room doctor living across the street. And he said, I want to help. And he started working. And after 45 minutes of working on this child, he said there was nothing else we could do.
Wow.
And that moment was the worst moment for my life. It was the hardest moment of my life. I said, this kid could have been saved if
Right.
a doctor would have arrived earlier.
Wow. 100%.
And
So,
then,
wow, that's pretty crazy. So, after a year and a half volunteering for Hatzalah, whatever it was,
then it wasn't
you,
Hatzalah. We didn't have Hatzalah then.
right?
It was,
What was it?
it was Magen David Adom, the ambulance
Okay.
union. And I was actually volunteering for them. And that's when I realized something else has to be done. We have to create Hatzalah in Israel.
Okay.
And
And what year was this?
This was 1989,
Wow.
before you were born.
Way before I was born. Wow. So you started. So after volunteering for Magen David Avram, you decided to start your own Hatzalah organization. How long did that take to? How long did that process take? And how did you come up with the name Ichud Hatzalah?
So the process was an interesting process. In the beginning, we called it Hatzalah,
Okay.
Hatzalah Yerushalayim. We were in Yerushalayim. Mitzvah Hatzalah Yerushalayim. And that's how we started, with 15 volunteers.
Wow.
And we had incredible people that started. They had a lot of different people. But it was very fast. It jumped from 15 to 30 to 50, 60. It was all in Yerushalayim. Then Bnei Brak started. And then other neighborhoods started. Har Nov started right away. And everyone started on their own, more or less. Other cities, because it was just, It was a great idea. But many years later, in 2006, they had a very bad war in Israel. It was a Lebanese war. The Hezbollah have killed 3 Israeli soldiers on the border. And it was we had a lot of tragedies going on. The Hezbollah attacked Israel. And they killed some of our soldiers. And we were in Israel devastated. And of course, it led to a war. The war was called the Second Lebanese War. And it was a very bad war. We had a lot of casualties. A lot of people died. It was terrible. And I was up north with our volunteers. And I realized, looking at the missiles flying above my head, real missiles made by Iran.
Wow.
And these missiles were flying towards Haifa and towards other cities. And I said to myself, we need to have Hatzalah everywhere in Israel, no matter where. Every city, I'm going to build Hatzalah. And we're going to call it United Hatzalah. We were going to unite all the Hatzalahs under one, instead of having separate Hatzalahs.
Right.
We're going to make one Hatzalah.
Parts.
It's very hard to unite Jews, very hard.
Yeah.
But it was because we had a war with the worst enemies of our Jewish nation. We went ahead and we were able to unite everyone under one, and we call it Ichud Hatzalah, United Hatzalah. Now we unite 250 Hatzalahs all over Israel under one umbrella.
Wow. So once you started all that, United Hatzalah and all that, what was the turning point how did you get to decide to do the unicycles? And what was, I know the point is to go quickly to calls, but how did you think of getting unicycles?
Well, we call it Ambi Cycles.
I meant Ambi Cycles.
Like ambulance, it's cycles. Now, the idea of it started when I was stuck in an ambulance in traffic.
Okay.
I was inside traffic in an ambulance on the way to an emergency. And I see a pizza delivery motorcycle passing us on the right, a hamburger motorcycle passing us on the left. And we're stuck in traffic, and they just disappeared.
Wow.
And I see this all the time. And I say to myself, listen, these guys on the motorcycles or Israeli soldiers who go make a few shekels, you know, delivering pizza.
Okay.
Why don't I go ahead and take a pizza delivery guy and make this pizza delivery guy a Hatzalah guy? I said
Okay.
to myself, it makes sense. I said, if I have a choke, I'm calling for pizza. I'm not calling for an ambulance.
Okay.
That's where the idea started. And I said, okay, I
Wow.
have to go ahead. And I bought a few pizza motorcycles,
Mm-hmm.
and I turned it into Ambi Cycles. And I put a siren on
Wow.
it. I put medical supplies. I put a defibrillator. Instead of delivering pizza, we deliver life.
Wow.
We're able to shorten time from 17 minutes to 2 minutes. 3
wow. Now, what's the average time on an Ambi cycle nowadays?
An average time in an Ambi cycle to get to an emergency is under 3 minutes in a big area. In
Okay.
some smaller areas like Bnei Brak and stuff like that, under 90 seconds.
Wow. Wow. So it must be expensive to do the Ambi cycles. Where do you find them, and how long does it take to build an actual Ambi cycle?
So we get people to donate these Ambi cycles. People
Wow.
actually donate money. It costs $36,000, and people will contact us and they say we want to donate an Ambi cycle and put a name of our family. Sometimes it's in memory of someone, in honor of someone. And we build it. It takes us around 2 or 3 months to build it. We take a motorcycle, we have to rebuild the whole electric system because we need a stronger electric. We need to build a stronger body for the box, for the medical supplies. It actually, it's a process that we go through. But when it's on the road, we do like a Achnasa Sefer Torah. We do a Achnasas motorcycle, Ambi cycle,
Wow.
and we do a dedication. And then we put it on the road. We give it to the volunteer. The volunteer drives it all the time wherever he goes, and the donor actually gets a report what that motorcycle did for saving.
Wow. How many Ambi cycles does Yichud Hatzalah have right now?
Over 1,000 Ambi cycles.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So United Hatzalah is up and running. A couple years ago, we had COVID. Now, I know, Eli, you travel the world to demonstrate and to fundraise for for Yichud Hatzalah, and for the Ambi Cycles. And so a couple years ago, we had COVID, and Eli, I think, was traveling, and something you caught COVID in Florida or something like that. What 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 exactly, you were just traveling through China? Where were you traveling that you unfortunately caught COVID?
So, well, I didn't fly to China. I was
Okay.
in Washington D.C.
Wow.
for APAC. It was the beginning of March in 2020, and then Purim came, middle of
Okay.
Adar, and I was in Florida by shul, and everything was okay. I heard Megillah. I went to Sudas Purim, drinking some wine. Everything was nice, beautiful. And then in the end of the Suda, I felt something wrong with me. No one really had COVID. We didn't know anyone in COVID. You
Okay.
heard it was starting here and there, but it wasn't like I didn't know anyone. And all of a sudden, I felt weird. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't breathe. I'm like, something's wrong. I said, okay, maybe I have a cold. I have this, I have that. And then a few days later, I couldn't breathe. I had a hard time breathing. I was like, I'm breathing, but nothing is digesting, you know? And after a few days, I went to the hospital. They had a doctor in Miami. His name is Dr. Zev Newworth. He told me, you have to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital. I get there. they right away checked me and they said, "You have serious COVID, very bad COVID. We have to take you into the ICU, the intensive care unit." And they put me in there. I was the first one in the intensive care unit. And they said after a few days, "Listen, your chances of survival are like very low, very, very, very low. We have to put you in a coma. We have to induce you into coma and put you on a ventilator." And I said, "What do you mean?" I was like shocked. And they said, "No, we have no choice." And that was a very hard moment for me. I realized that I may not survive. I may die. I was only 46 years old then.
Wow.
I was like, what do I do now? Like, okay, I have to call my kids. I have to call my wife, say goodbye. I call my wife, Kitty. I call my kids, Abigail, my daughter Panina, Libby, Yisroel, and Adina. I said goodbye to everyone.
Wow.
I asked them to be good Jews. That's all I asked them. Be good Jews. Do chesed. Whenever someone asks you for a favor or something, do something good, no matter who they are. Someone needs help to schlep something. Someone needs help something. Never say no to chesed. And my kids listened to me, and they were crying, of course. I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk anymore. And the doctor says, "We have a very short time. We need to put you on a coma. Otherwise, your situation is going to get worse. You're going to get a heart attack." So they put me on a coma. They put me on a ventilator. And I asked everyone to daven to me and to do chesed for me. And I was out for a long time. I was not here. I was halfway up there.
Wow. You woke up, did you know where you were? Or not exactly?
When I woke up, I had no idea where I was. I forgot I was ever in Miami. I was totally out of it. I didn't remember where I was. I was really out of things. I didn't know what was going on with me and anything. And it took me time to get back to myself. And I was depressed very, very much because I realized after a while, I woke up wearing a diaper. I couldn't walk. I lost the ability to. I didn't have any strength. I didn't, laying down for over a month, and you lose all your ability to move. And I was in a disability moment, and I couldn't even go to the bathroom on my own. So it was very, very hard, and it took time. And don't forget, then no family members could visit you. It's not like I woke up with family. A lot of people are sick; they wake up with a family with them. I did not wake up with any family with me.
Wow. But your family came to Florida to be with you, even though they couldn't be in the hospital. They came to Florida, or they
Couldn't
just
travel. They
stayed in
couldn't
Israel.
travel. It was closed. Israel was closed. No airlines.
Okay.
They were locked down in Israel. I was in America. I was in Miami. They couldn't come, so I was alone.
Wow.
Am Yisroel were davening. People were davening for me, and that's why
Yeah.
I survived. And people did chesed for me.
Yeah. One of the biggest things out there was the news was when you woke up. No one was able to believe it from my standpoint that Eli Beer was able to wake up and Baruch Hashem and get out. Once you got out of the hospital and you were able to go back to wherever you were staying in Florida, you had to get back to Israel somehow. But the world was shut down. So how did Eli Beer get back to Israel, and how did you decide to ask Simcha Sheen to fly with you?
Okay, so when I woke up, there was no airlines. There was no way of getting to Eretz Yisrael. I had a lot of people who offered planes to fly me to Israel. A lot of them. And I was embarrassed to take people's help and stuff. I said, okay. One person was Sheldon Adelson, Zichrono Livracha.
Okay.
His wife Miriam, she's a doctor. She's very close friends. And Miriam and her husband were very, very moved from what happened to me. And they offered to send a plane to take me, but I needed a doctor
Wow.
and I needed a paramedic. So when I knew I need a paramedic, the first thing in my mind was Simcha Shein.
Wow.
Who else could I take? Simcha is the number one chesed guy I know. I don't know anyone in America. I don't know anyone in America who's a paramedic who has bigger skills in chesed than Simcha.
Wow.
This is times that it's not like easy to get to Miami. It was very hard. There wasn't no flights and this stuff. I called Simcha Shein and I called Dr. Zevi North. Two chesed
Okay.
people. I needed a doctor and a paramedic. And guess what? They both right away said, yes, we're coming. I'm coming with you.
Wow.
Because it's hard because they have to, it's dangerous to fly to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's so scary, the whole situation. Had a lockdown in Israel. And Simcha went ahead and he arranged all the necessary thing. Simcha flies. He's one of the biggest. He flies hundreds of people a month.
100%.
With planes, with different things and everything. And he was able to do this. And Baruch Hashem, I saw him in Miami when I was in the hospital. He comes and he walks me out with a stretcher.
Mm-hmm.
And he's carrying all the medically brought a defibrillator, a big one, a monitor, and all these machines he brought. He has more experience flying patients than a lot of people I know. And
that is true.
It's true.
Yeah.
He took him and he flew him to he flew me together with Zevi North to Israel. And when we landed, I never even imagined what was happening. I don't know if you remember.
I saw what I saw was a ton of about 1,000 Ambi Cycles or maybe more at the wherever you landed, just barricaded one after the other. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable situation where I see 1,000 volunteers of United Hatzalah that were waiting with Ambi Cycles, with bicycles, with ambulances, with different vehicles, just to welcome me. And I thought I was shocked. I didn't know what it was. I was a little confused. I thought it was my own levaya.
Oy.
And then Simcha and Zevik walk me down from the plane, and I see all my family there, and I give them a hug, and I can't believe my family's there, and all the volunteers, unbelievable. Not all the volunteers in Israel, of course, because they had to save lives, but they allowed only 1,000 to come. So
wow. Getting back to United Hatzalah for a second. So United Hatzalah has many different things that they do, and one of them is one of the units. I don't know if it's still around, but is the psychotrauma unit. What did they do, and if they still do it, what does it take to do it?
So it's a very, very unique idea that United Hatzalah started. It's a group of incredible professional people dedicated to help people, but not physically, but emotionally.
Okay.
So if chas v'shalom something happens, let's say a trauma, like a Maroon trauma, or a car accident, or a building collapse, or anything, a fire. Many people injured need Hatzalah medical people, but some people are emotionally injured. They are suffering from a really, really emotional, injury, and they need someone to help them to prevent post-traumatic stress and other disorders. And these professional volunteers. We have 700 volunteers like that in Eretz Yisrael.
Wow.
And they come to deal with the emotional trauma and they know how to treat, and they do an incredible job, amazing job, and I'm very, very proud of their work. Every day they go out, not only in big events, small events. Someone has a tragedy, they need a psychotrauma help, they come right away. And this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm very proud of them. And I'm thankful to you for asking about them.
What's the average response time for the psychotrauma unit to a call?
15 minutes, which is unbelievable.
That
They don't
is
come with lights
unbelievable.
and sirens. They come, sometimes they do come with lights and sirens. It matters what it is, but we want them to come with 15 minutes to the call because they need medical treatment first, and then they take over for the emotional treatment.
Wow. Okay, so after COVID and everything, we're still in lockdown, sort of. Israel had another terrible tragedy, and that was the Maroon tragedy. If Eli was in Maroon, then can Eli explain to us what he exactly saw and the trauma for everyone that it happened to? What was it like?
On Maroon Tragedy, we had 300 Hatzalah volunteers there.
Wow.
United Hatzalah volunteers were every year for the last 20, 30 years. I remember 25, 30 years we were there. For everything.
Okay.
Every year we saw miracles. Every year was a miracle by itself. Every year. It's such a small place, so crowded, so hot. So many passionate people want to be there and dance and touch the caver and come in to the Myra. It's like it becomes a mess every year.
Okay.
No one ever regulated the whole thing. The government never really took care of it. It wasn't professionally, it wasn't professionally run. And we were in a situation where we saw every year that one or two people could have gotten killed. We had situations where people died, nothing like this. And then we always said that this is something that could happen. And we always prepared ourselves every year to a disaster. We never expected this kind of a disaster, this kind of a mega disaster. And we ended up that we had that day the worst ever human disaster in the state of Israel. And I seen other big disasters like a wedding hall collapse, the Versailles wedding hall. I was there, but this one was the worst of the worst because these were all young people that came to celebrate a very special event for everyone in Ambi Cycles. Lag BaOmer is a very special day that we had a play, and all of a sudden, in 1 minute, 45 people died.
Wow. And what was like? Why did it take so long for everyone to get confirmation about their child or families? Unfortunately, didn't make it. What exactly went wrong, or if it didn't go wrong, but what exactly happened that it took for so long for people to get notified?
Well, it matters a lot of. I don't want to get into details because it's a thing, but it was some people were very hard to recognize because of the magnitude of the situation, and it was a situation where people at the police in Israel had to for sure know it's the person. Can't say, oh yeah, he's missing. Yeah, he's missing. It makes sense that it's you have to have more evidence. So it took time to get all these evidence. The police, in the case of after, yes, they have a lot of kindness against the police about how they handled the thing before, but after it was handled more or less okay. Don't forget, no one was ready to deal with such a bad situation. This is not a regular situation.
Right.
So also to get 45 people died, and to really find out the names of every single one, and a lot of people were going to hospitals. They didn't know where to go. It was a balagan. It was a mess. It was a disaster. It's not a regular situation.
Yeah. Wow. Getting back to Simcha, how did Eli Beer get to meet Simcha, and what was your first interaction with Simcha?
Simcha comes a couple of times a year with special needs kids.
Okay.
And he comes with kids who have hard time breathing, hard time walking, and some of them are in a very bad situation that they need Hatzalah.
Right.
They need to be with around Hatzalah. And
Okay.
Simcha, many years ago, as a Hatzalah member in Lakewood, as a paramedic, he contacted me many years ago. He wanted to come with the kids to come visit Hatzalah in
Right.
Eretz Yisrael. And we hit it off. I met another good neshama. I don't know a lot of good neshamas like Simcha. He doesn't have a bad bone in his body,
100%.
And when he contacted me, I said, sure, let's meet. And I loved him right away. And we became good friends. And we spent a lot of time together over the years. Although he lives in Lakewood, I live in Israel or on the plane. We always meet somehow once in a while. And he's a good man.
I think he told me a story once during COVID that you called him up on a Tuesday or Wednesday and asked him, Simcha, you want to come to Israel for Shabbos? He's like, today is Tuesday, today's Wednesday. I don't remember what he said. Like, yeah, okay, maybe. He's like, Eli told me, oh, your flight is in a half hour. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I booked you on a flight in a half hour. Pretty amazing during COVID.
Yeah, I had to save someone's life. And Simcha was an expert about helping people with bad COVID. He had experience of that. And he was on the highway in New Jersey somewhere, in like the turnpike or something. And I called him up. I said, where are you? He said, I'm in the turnpike. I said, okay, where are you going? He said, I'm going to my office. I said, okay, listen, go to the airport. I have someone else picking up your passport from your house. And you have a flight in a half hour.
Wow.
You're in Israel to save someone's life. And that's what he did.
Yeah. Wow.
He's a spontaneous lifesaver. He's a spontaneous lifesaver.
It's unbelievable what he does on a daily basis.
You know, when you do chesed, a guy like Simcha, every Jew has to know one thing. The chiyuv of chesed is 24/7. It's not,
100%.
Twice a day, I do it between 1 and 1:30 in the afternoon. That's my chesed time. No. A Jew must do chesed 24/7.
100%. So, what made Eli Beer write this book called 90 Seconds to Something, and what is the book all about?
Well, the book is an incredible book. I don't have it near me, but
okay.
It's called 90 Seconds. It's a beautiful orange book with like 100 motorcycles behind me. Ambi Cycles.
Wow.
And the book was written by Nachman Seltzer, who wrote a lot of books, and it was published by Art Scroll. The book is about my life, about my challenges. Not only, look, I had a lot of challenges, difficulties. It's not like nothing came easy.
Right, 100%.
I still have problems. I still have many, many situations where I, as a human being, as a father, as a grandfather now, dealing with, as a president of a big organization, all the time we have challenges. It's not, okay, we're just laying down like this and things are happening by itself. We have to deal with challenges and know how to deal with it and have siyata d'shmaya. And this book is all about building the organization from a small group of 15 volunteers going through threats of ambulance unions. Magen David Adom did not like what we were doing.
Okay.
Ministry of Health didn't like what we were doing. They thought they should have one ambulance service and that's it.
Wow.
Calls for help, they must wait for an ambulance. I said to them, what are you talking about? People wait 20 minutes for an ambulance, they die. They said, this is what it is. People wait for an ambulance, people wait for an ambulance. Sometimes they're lucky, I'll come in 2 minutes, sometimes they're not lucky. I said, it should be this way. We should have Lo Yistamod al Dam Recha. When someone needs help, we must have help right away. And you can't have a monopoly when it comes to saving lives. We need to have competition is good for saving lives. And I build a competition. Could you imagine? I was 15 years old, 16 years old. I built a competition for the biggest ambulance service in Israel, the strongest union in Israel. They are so powerful, billions of dollars. And I came with an idea that changed the way life-saving is done in Israel.
Wow. Wow.
They wanted to arrest me. They said, this guy is having motorcycles and ambulances. It's illegal. He shouldn't have this and that. And look at it today. Baruch Hashem, every day we treat 2,000 people.
Wow. Amazing. What's the craziest call that United Hatzalah has ever taken since its inception?
It's a hard job you just gave me. I have to find out. 5.5 million calls, the craziest call. Well, I once went out to a call of a kid who was unconscious in a daycare.
Wow. Okay.
Actually, a daycare in Ramot, where I live. It was a winter day. It was terrible weather. It was raining and also starting to snow. So roads were very slippery. A lot of accidents were happening. I get a call about a kid not breathing, and I run down the steps in my building. The steps were wet, and I slipped down the steps, and I broke my leg.
Ooh. Wow.
I go on the Hatzalah walkie-talkie. I said, I'm down. Someone else has to go. I can't respond. They said, listen, no one else is available. You're the only unit available because everyone else is busy in other calls. Please. I jumped on one leg, on my left leg, and I responded to a little boy who was unconscious. And I got there. It took me 2 minutes to get there. I was in a lot of pain. The kid was on the hands of the daycare woman who was taking care of him. She didn't know what to do, and she hands me over the baby who was not breathing, blue. I started working on the baby in a lot of pain. I didn't feel the pain because I was thinking about the baby. And then 2 other volunteers arrived. I gave them over the baby, and I lay down. And then I got to the ambulance came. They took the baby to the hospital. Then another ambulance came to take me to the hospital.
Wow.
I ended up in the same hospital. And then the doctor who treated me said, I want to show you something. He put a cast on my leg. He said, I want to take you upstairs. He takes me upstairs to the top floor of the hospital, into the pediatric department. And he says, Eli, see this baby sleeping here? This baby is a baby you saved his life. The baby's alive, no brain damage. He's 100% okay.
Wow.
So
on a broken leg.
On a broken leg. For a month I was on a cast, but I knew that I saved a life.
Wow. That is pretty crazy. Wow. Any plans for United Hatzalah to expand now, or just to get more Ambi Cycles and all that?
I want to expand to every community in Eretz Yisrael. Have every street one volunteer, at least.
Okay.
My goal is to respond to 90 seconds everywhere in Israel. And Eretz Yisrael is growing. More and more people are coming. More children are born. I want to make sure we're always prepared. So we want to buy more Ambi Cycles, train more volunteers, get more ambulances, help more people, no matter who they are. We help everyone, also non-Jews. Whenever they need help, we help them. And that's the beauty of this organization.
What are the credentials to join United Hatzalah, and what's the training like?
Well, someone who has a goodwill, a good person, a good heart, that's the number one. You need a good heart.
Okay.
Someone who's a good neshama. Second thing is, they need to be in an area that we need them. Not everywhere. We need some places we have too many volunteers. Third, we need them to be available 24/7. If they're not available for us when we need them, we can't have someone who's not available most of the day. So it has to be someone who's available. And the last thing is they have to go through a course, like a EMT course, which takes almost a year.
Okay.
And it's a 200-hour course. They don't do it in one shot. They do it over the year.
Right.
And once they finish the course, they have to join. They join with their own car. And then after a while, we see the ones who deserve it, they get an Ambi Cycle. Not everyone gets an Ambi Cycle.
What are the credentials to get an Ambi Cycle?
So you need to live in an area that needs it. Some places don't need it. Like they don't have traffic.
Got it.
And then the second thing is you need to be very active. You need to have a driving license for a motorcycle license. You need to have experience. You need to have a good record of no violations in the road. This is very dangerous. So we have we're very tough about who we give Ambi Cycles to.
Here are people that that are EMTs in New York. Are they able to transfer their EMT license to United Hatzalah in Israel if they decide to move, or it's a separate course for EMT in Israel?
So they have a program in America now. It's called NREMT, National Registry EMT. So that's easier. We could transfer that. You do little adjustments for a course. You do a test or whatever. But the regular EMTs are more of a problem. You need to have an NR, National Registry EMT, which is a little, training is different. They do it computers, a whole thing. So if someone's thinking of making Aliyah coming, they should do an NR EMT.
Okay. How can we learn more about United Hatzalah?
So thank you for asking that question.
And donate.
Thank you. So the way of learning about United Hatzalah is really easy. I mean, you go on our website, israelrescue.org, israelrescue.org, or in our social media, which is United Hatzalah. We spell Hatzalah a lot of ways of spelling Hatzalah.
Right.
Hatzalah, United Hatzalah of Israel. And you could learn on social media a lot. You could see this podcast, this radio show. You could see this. You could also go and donate on the website. We have a lot of ways of donating. You could donate an oxygen tank. You could donate a defibrillator. You could donate an Ambi Cycle. You could donate a motorcycle. You could donate, an ambulance. There's a lot of things to donate directly to specific causes. Training a volunteer, training one volunteer for United Hatzalah costs $10,000.
Wow.
Year of process. And the end of the training, we give from that allocation of donation, we give a defibrillator, a trauma kit, a radio, walkie-talkie, and that's something that we have to do to train 700 people every year. So that's one of the goals when we raise money, to train more and more volunteers to buy more Ambi Cycles. Each Ambi Cycle is $36,000. It's a very big cost. So, but every dollar counts. So people could donate $10 or $100 or $18 or $180,000. Every dollar counts.
Wow. And just to touch on one thing, how did you get to training the number 700 people a year? How did you get to that number?
Well, we made a plan, a 5-year plan. We also have people leaving every year. We have a certain percentage leave every year. We have 2.5% of the organization retire every year.
When you say retire, what do you mean retire?
Either people who are not capable to do this anymore because they're already older. We have an 84-year-old volunteer.
Wow.
So that person has to retire. Or some people they move for business, they move for whatever, they don't. So they retire because they're not active anymore. 2.5% a year. So we have to train new people. Also, the country grows. The population gets older. So you need more volunteers. Let's see. Give you an example. Modi'in was old young people once, 25 years. They built Modi'in, it was young. Today, a lot of older people, so they need more attention. The city grows. A lot of calculations we put into research and development of the next 5 years of United Hatzalah. We need to train 700 people a year in order to be in our goal of 90 seconds.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty amazing. It's pretty what you guys what you guys do on a daily basis is amazing.
Thank you.
Wow. Anyway, Eli, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me interview you on this podcast. Sorry we went back and forth, whatever, it's all good.
It was my fault. It wasn't your fault.
No, it was
I
both
travel so much. It's hard to do a Zoom from a plane.
It was both of our faults, whatever it is. But Baruch Hashem, keep doing the great things that you do with United Hatzalah on a daily basis, and we should not need United Hatzalah any longer with the becoming of Mashiach very quickly.
So now we're in the 9 days. I don't know when this is going to be broadcast.
Okay.
But so relevant. Hatzalah, United Hatzalah, because the chesed that we do, Ahavas Yisroel. And I heard from Simcha Shein a lot of stories that he did, and, with the Holocaust survivor, and that he treated with the guy that was the potatoes. I will never forget it, that story of the potatoes. I must say that it's a pleasure and honor to be interviewed by you, because you are one of the greatest interviewers I ever had. You asked the right questions. You did research. I want to say chapeau. You know what a chapeau is?
No.
Chapeau is like they say. It's in, I think it's a French word. Like, kol hakavod for your research. You asked the question. It's really nice, and you're really a great interviewer. So good luck with this show, and I hope you have a lot of listeners. And don't forget,
I hope so too.
Don't forget to tell everyone, and everyone is listening, to go buy the book 90 Seconds. You can buy it on every bookstore or Amazon or ArtScroll. 90 Seconds, and it'll come the next day. And I want it to be the most inspiring book ever. It is, but you should read it and get inspired.
I'm definitely going to get one. I want to read it. I'm definitely
going to get it from me. Now you heard it from me. Now I want you to read the book.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to definitely read it. It's from what I heard, people have told me it's quite an amazing book. So I really want to read it.
I met a kid last week from Connecticut who came to visit Israel, and his father said he wrote me he wants to bring his son. I said, why? I said, I'm busy. He said, my son needs to meet you. He never read a book. He's 12 years old. 9 or 10, I don't remember. A young kid. He said he never read a book in his life. This is the first time he reads a book, and he reads it 4 times. He read the book.
Wow.
And he said he never read a book. So I said, okay, I'll meet him. And I met him.
Did you sign the book at least?
I signed it, of course. So if you get it now, listen, go on Amazon. It comes to your house the next day, and I'll sign it when I see you.
Okay. Eli, thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. Just wow. Amazing episode with the one and only Eli Beer from United Hatzalah. The amount of things that United Hatzalah does is just amazing, what they have accomplished over the years. If you've gotten this far in the episode on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, and share to our channel. Also, if you don't mind, comment on it the word rescue. That is RESCUE. CUE, rescue. Also, please visit their website at www.israelrescue.org and maybe donate a little bit to their page, to their organization. That is www.israelrescue.org. And thanks to our sponsors for this week's episode. Thanks to PowerFlight. To learn more about what PowerFlight does, please visit them at www.powerflight.aero. That is www.powerflight.aero. As well as VentureTech Computer Peer. Please visit us at www.venturetechcomputers.com. That is www.venturetechcomputers.com. Thanks, and see you in the next week's episode.